Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know, if I'll ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs. You can say I lost my mind, I will keep on holding my head high, even if the sky is falling down.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Successfully Chaotic. I'm your host, Maria Daniels, and today I have an amazing guest. I was actually on her show not long ago, and I invited her to be on mine. We hit it off, and we talked for a really long time, even off the podcast. So I was excited to have her on today, and I'm going to let her jump in and introduce herself and tell you all a little bit about who she is and what she does.
Maria, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so awesome that we're just having this experience because, like, we're going to let everybody know, like, while we were laughing for hours, even though our husbands would tell us to get off the computer.
Yeah.
I need someone to get off the computer.
Well, and I think that you meet those people sometimes every once in a while where it's like you feel like you've known each other for a long time, and I felt like that's how it was. And so I was excited to have you on today, not only because I like you, but also I really wanted my listeners to be able to kind of meet you and to be able to hear a little bit about your journey and kind of what brought you to what you do today. And I know, just kind of throwing a little bit out there, and I will let you kind of get into more, but you do have a very inspiring journey from corporate career to becoming a successful empowerment coach and a motivational speaker. And I would like you to kind of tell us a little bit about your journey from corporate into what you do now. And if for a lot of people, that's kind of a dream. And we could talk about all day long how sometimes it's a dream and sometimes it's a, what did I do? That was a really cushy salary. However, there are pluses and minuses to everything. And I want you to kind of share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Denise Lee. And I say Denise Lee always because, like, there's like so many Denise Lees out there. I'm not Denise.
I noticed.
So, okay, I'm not that person, and I don't have a fashion company from Allah. Like, that's not who I am. So I just wanted to break that down. But anyway, Maria, to your point about like leaving corporate America to what I'm doing right now, it came through a lot of trauma. I don't know any other way to say this.
Yeah.
I got a degree to avoid disappointing my father. I stayed in a job for almost 10 years because I didn't want to disappoint everyone around me, and I ended up disappointing myself. And so the path to actually entrepreneurism wasn't so much because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, was because I didn't know any other way other than to express myself in a way that didn't work within corporate America.
Absolutely. Well, and for people that are listening that aren't familiar with the corporate world, like I mentioned earlier, and there are pluses and minuses. Yes, having the salary, knowing what's coming in every month, that's definitely a plus. Living, for me, I know, and maybe this isn't your journey, but you can correct me if it's not, but for me, it was very much like showing up for like an acting job. Showing up, and I would have to put on this mask of perfection, show up all great and smiling and ready to go. And some days I was great and smiling and ready to go, and some days I wasn't. And it was very dysfunctional, the company that I worked with, and it caused a lot of issues with my own anxiety and a whole lot of other things. And much like you said, I had to get out of it because it wasn't a fit for me. It wasn't a fit for my family. And at the time that I finally jumped out of it, my son, who is 14 now and on the spectrum, he was needing more of my attention. So it definitely didn't fit with the corporate lifestyle. And I think a lot of us have different journeys on how we end up into the world of entrepreneurship. But for some of us that haven't quite made it out of kind of that world yet, they have questions on, okay, well, how did you do it, right? What was the secret? Like what made you go ahead and take that jump? Because a lot of people think about it for a long time and it takes a while to do it. I know for me, there was no thinking about it. I'm a very impulsive person, and I just decided that morning, and an hour later I did it.
Well, okay, all right. I want people to understand that I didn't automatically just say I'm going to quit my job and launch a business. Like there was a lot of little
Yeah.
steps I got to it. I'll never forget when I was working. I worked for many different government agencies. But I don't want to mention names and embarrass people, but I remember one particular government agency I was working with, and I was a friend of mine, a coworker of mine, gave me little magazine, Inc. magazine. He was like, I know that you want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe you can get some inspiration and stuff like this from this. And I remember always trying to do various side hustles, even while I was working
Mm-hmm.
corporate America. So I don't want anyone to like be deluded and think like you have to automatically just jump
Yeah.
into your business, which is not the case. And I did so many silly little things. I was making beads.
Yeah.
I did personal training. I did all
Yeah.
sorts of little side ventures. So I don't want anyone listening to this and thinking, well, you have to have everything figured out by the time you quit corporate. No, you don't. Unless you want to go broke,
Yep.
you could do that.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people do that. But more often than not, it's really building the confidence while having a bit of the security blanket.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm the same. I know that was one of the things that we kind of talked about. I used to train, I used to do all these things. And honestly, I didn't really count them as a business because, like you said, it was just a side hustle. It was just a thing that I did that I really loved. And, I did make some money off of it, but I had another job. So I didn't really worry about how much I made, how much I didn't make, whatever. But it did give me a foundation that when I did make that decision, like I said, within an hour, even though I did ugly cry all the way home, to be fair, I did ugly cry all the way home on like, oh my gosh, it's for real though. It gave me somewhere to start, right? And I think, for anybody listening, maybe kind of a nugget to think about is if it's something that you're being pulled out of that corporate world, maybe start thinking about what are some other things that you can do to, make some streams of income. Because I think what I've seen, and you can share your thoughts, is that some people want to jump out and put their eggs all in one basket at the very beginning, but it takes a long time to grow something. So yeah, you don't want to divide your attention too much, but there's something to be said about a little bit of streams here and there. That way, some things may naturally work and some things may not, and you can divert your attention to things that are working. What is your experience with that?
So all of us, right, whether or not we believe it or not, we have affinities, we have strengths, and we have things that just get our attention. And for a lot of us, like let's just say you're an accountant right now, right? And while you may be great at punching numbers, maybe you're better writing nonfiction. And you always find yourself going back to writing little novellas or little long form social media posts. And so even though technically you may have strengths in one area, your passion lies in another. And so for you guys who are listening, maybe right now you're focusing on the strengths that happen through practice, but you're forgetting the passions because your passions can turn into strengths. But you just never really explored it because you never gave yourself the opportunity to examine within yourself, where is my heart really leading you to?
Yeah. No, and I think sometimes we've never given ourselves the chance to answer that question. And I think that is great advice. Maybe instead of being super impulsive like Maria, like within an hour, I think what I should have done probably is ask myself, why do I want to do this? What are some of the things that I can do? That way it wasn't such a like dramatic scene and ugly cry and all the things that came after that for like a few days. Actually, we'll be honest, like a week or more. And it was because, being impulsive sounds great. Like, oh, I just make these decisions and I'll sit and wait on it. But then you still do have those things that come after where you're, overthinking everything. I think though that with a lot of people, you're either in one bucket or the other. You're either somebody that sits on it for a long, long time and you're afraid to make a move, or you're super impulsive and then you're like, what did I do? And there's a sweet spot right in the middle that we all kind of need to gravitate toward, on where we do ask ourselves, some of these questions, like, what are some things that I can do? Why am I thinking about wanting to leave my career? What's my plan? How am I going to kind of make things work? Because we all have bills, right? Like, answering some of these questions will help us avoid some of the stresses that's going to come and the questions that's going to come afterward. I do want to ask you, when you took that step out of, the corporate world, because you said that your father, that a lot of it was because of your father. Was it something that he agreed with, he didn't agree with, or was it just like, I have to just kind of follow my own heart?
So I don't even know where to begin with this. This is all a hot mess. When originally, I didn't want to get a college degree.
Yeah.
I really didn't have any ambitions of formal education. I just was kind of content to hang out with my friends and just have a good time. And I remember the moment I was talking with, I graduated high school. I graduated high school a year early. And I remember my father said to me, well, you can either go to college or you can leave my house. And then I was like, oh, snap. I could still hang out with my friends and get a college degree. Like, two things can work side by side.
Yeah.
And my degree actually was a science degree because that was just, I wanted to follow in the foot. My dad was an economist. I thought, well, something science. So I chose environmental science, haven't used it in over 20 years, but it's neither here nor there. The reason why I'm mentioning all this information was that it was fear of abandonment, then fear of not being able to pay the loans, then fear of looking bad if I didn't finish the degree. So all of this fear was snowballing on one another. And then when I finally did get a job, it was like, well, you got to pay these loans. You got to do something with this. And so for a lot of us, we make decisions on decisions on decisions on decisions and never really asking ourselves, like, why are we even doing this? And confronting that fear, confronting the possibility of being looked at badly, is what stops a lot of entrepreneurs from really selecting selecting professions or like endeavors that really align with them, because they're making fear-based decisions.
Absolutely. Well, and then what ends up happening is, like you said, people get out of college, they get that job because it's very need-based. I need to pay my loans, I'm going to pay some bills, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, I have some money, this isn't so bad. And then time goes on and they start to feel lost in their careers. They may end up, married with kids or a dog or like whatever the case may be. They end up responsibilities, right? And then they feel more and more lost in their career and in their personal life. And before you know it, they're, in their 30s or in their 40s or whatever age, and they are miserable. They're going through the day and they're not really sure why they're there, like you said. And I think that a lot of people end up in that space. And, at that point in time, some people, I feel like the universe kind of makes decisions for some of us. Like for me, even though I was the one that verbally said, hey, I'm going to quit, this is not for me anymore, the universe had already made that decision, because it was becoming very hard with my son's needs to be able to show up and do a corporate job when I never knew what kid I had that day, So, I think sometimes that happens, or maybe you end up with a lost job or whatever, but people end up, feeling lost, not knowing what to do, and then suddenly they decide to start this business. So let's kind of shift and talk about the business, because I like that you've mentioned some nuggets about this, and I kind of want to dig in on this. But I think a lot of people, they start this business, they dream it up, they do it, they're ready to go, they get it all ready, they've got their pens, they've got their rubber stamp, they got their business cards, they got their website, and they're like, all right, here we go. It's time to let the money come rolling in. And then it doesn't. So I think those beginning, unless you were just like ready to hit the ground running, which very few people are, those first few months can be like, oh, crickets. Okay, now what? And then again, you're back to feeling lost. You're back to diving in some of those old feelings. Let's talk a little bit about that. Maybe you didn't experience that, but I know that is a common thing with people. And I do want to kind of talk about kind of that shift.
everybody's feeling lost. Doesn't matter if it's 5 months in business, 5 years of business, 15 years of business. Everybody's feeling lost because new level, new devil, right?
Yep. Yep.
You're always going to be facing challenges. And if you weren't facing challenges in your business, then you're not a business owner.
Yep.
You're just not. You're playing business owner, which is really playing hobbyist according to the IRS. It's not the exact same thing. And you know, it takes about 10,000 hours, 5 years to master any type of skill. And I see people this all the time, well, thinking, well, I've been in corporate America for 15, 20 years, whatever. I want to translate that stuff and just shine like a diamond in the sky right now that I got my job. And people are like, well, who are you once you get out? Because you didn't build your brand. What you did was build the brand of your company, or whoever you were working for. They were building that reputation. They were putting themselves out there. You're just new. You're green to the field. So for a lot of people who are starting business, that's a shock to the system, because it's like, wait a minute, I was rocking it hard when I was an employee. Now I'm like screaming into the void with everybody else, asking if we can have a free consult. Who are you?
It's so true, because, you know, it's funny because I always explain that, to me, a business is almost like having a child. So, you know, you birth this business into existence, and oh my gosh, it's the cutest thing you've ever seen. And everything they do is cute. They sneeze, it's cute. Everything is cute, right? And then you go a little bit, and it's like they go in the toddler years, and it's like, yeah, they're not quite right, walking real well, but it's going to be fine. You know, things are going on. And then they get to the childhood. And then once you think you've got it, like you hit the childhood years, it's like, okay, I've got this. I know what I'm doing in business now. I'm a business owner. This is working. This is going well. And boom, the teenage years hit. And then you're back to like not knowing what's going on. Something's going, you know, and I think that's the journey. Like we all end up kind of going on, it's this ebb and flow, it's this roller coaster effect. And, you know, it took me a hot minute to figure out that that is the way that it is. And you have to kind of dial back and have your foundational checkpoints to say, okay, as long as these checkpoints are in place, I know my business is on the right path, right? But those fine-tuned things sometimes are going to ebb and flow. Now, you coach businesses, and I want to kind of hear, you know, maybe from your experience. I guess you coach entrepreneurs that have businesses, but I want to hear from your experience, kind of what does that look like, and maybe some strategies that you have found helpful for people to kind of navigate that.
The stuff that I would tell someone who's been in business for a year or 2 years is definitely not going to be the exact same thing that I would say someone who's been 5, 7, 10. And it's not because of necessarily the years that they were in business, but the mindset of being a business owner. Because like to your point, in the beginning of your business, it is a baby. You're cuddling, you're nurturing, and you're thinking everything's all beautiful and wonderful and sexy. And then by year 5, and you're looking at your payroll and you're looking at your numbers and you're going, what in the hell was I thinking? And you know what
I've been there. I have been there.
And so when we're thinking about priorities, right, we're not thinking about it from a standpoint of necessarily making money. Obviously, a business is designed to make money, but it's designed to like, how is it supporting the lifestyle that I want to live?
Yeah. No.
And I think a lot of people just only think, oh, if I can just get these 10K months, or I can get these blah, blah, blah months. I'm like, well, what about you going to sleep without feeling anxiety about getting emails the next day?
Exactly.
Or what about you having systems and processes so that it can work autopilot, so you can finally go on vacation with your husband, which you've been saying that you've been wanting to do for the last 3 years?
Absolutely. Well, what do you think? Now it's time, I guess, to tell us the secret. What do you think the secret to that is, or at least I know it's a lot of things. However, maybe what the secret seed, the seed that gets planted. What do you think that is?
Boy, you know how to put
me
on the spot. I know. Well, I think again, it always goes back to where your passions lie, right? Mm-hmm. For a lot of us, we didn't really want to run a business. What we want to do is bring about more awareness in a particular cause. And the vehicle is through our business.
Yes.
Well, why don't we structure the real passion so that we can accomplish it through the vehicle that our business is. So you're constantly thinking, okay, what's my feelings tell me? Because look, here's the thing. I just want to say this for everybody who's listening. All right. We live in a society that keeps telling us to worry about our thoughts all day, every day, our thoughts, whatever. But the reality is most of our thinking is by and large through our stomach, through our enteric system, which is our bowels. Like, have you ever noticed, like, when you feel irritated, like you just feel like a tightness and knot in your stomach, or when you see somebody that you just like, and then your stomach is doing leaps and flies, good or bad. Your body is telling you right now whether or not something's good or not good for you. And for a lot of us who want to grow our business, set priorities, make strategies, we have abandoned that instinct in terms for our intuitive thinking. But that's not the way to run a business. And I know a lot of people thinking, well, that might be impulsive. Well, it's impulsive if it's not checked with reality.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and I think with people, they are afraid to fail. They're afraid to make mistakes along the way. They're afraid to take these experiences and kind of pivot them into lessons. And that's another thing that I see kind of in the entrepreneurial world, especially in the beginning. They take every single setback as a personal insult. And I'm saying they, because I'm honestly talking about me at the very beginning too. Every time I would hit something that I got it planned out on paper, it worked, it was supposed to work, or whatever it was didn't work the way I thought, I'd be like, this is not for me. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this, and it would set me back for a minute. But, their business life, let's just be honest, not just business, life is unpredictable, right? It's an unpredictable environment. And so within that, these experiences, these lessons, they help us be able to navigate this unpredictable environment. And you mentioned a few minutes ago that, the way that you talk to someone that's been in business 10 years or whatever is different than, a year. And it's because of the mindset. And that's absolutely true, because I think, at that point in time, you've matured along with your business. You've realized you've been out there long enough and experienced enough of these wins and also these failures that has given you a perspective of being able to kind of see how to navigate unpredictable environments. Now, when you're talking to an entrepreneur, someone considering becoming an entrepreneur, what would you suggest that they really pay attention to as far as that mindset goes, on harnessing kind of that inner strength, on harnessing that experience and lesson to be able to get that mindset that's needed to navigate?
That's a really good question. But before I answer that question, I just want to say something that's going to kind of tie in perfectly, is that a lot of entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs treat business as if they were in school, where they do certain things and they expect to get A's. They do certain things and they expect to get like a pat on the back. They do certain things and a result happens that's favorable if they work hard enough. And love, that's not how business works. You could be slaying it hard and people be like, I don't care what you do. There's 10,000 other you out there.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about this idea of beginning to want to grow your business, right? We're going to have to throw out the window all the stuff that you learn in school, university, even what all the gurus tell you, because the fact of the matter is they failed forward just like you will.
Yeah.
And when I say fail forward, I'm saying that it's the experience that comes through the failures that teaches the lesson so that you can make less mistakes in that certain areas. But you need to start making as many mistakes as you can, because that's the only way you're going to learn as a business owner. So I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Your question about like respect with.
No, what I was saying is, like, what would you recommend that someone do to be able to get their mindset, I guess, primed for that's kind of what you've kind of answered it a little bit. And, failing forward is definitely, a huge part of that, but it's also learning that those failures are really failing their learning. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, as I was thinking just now, I think a lot of people want to judge the success on the business based on the opinions of the people who don't have the guts to own a business.
Yeah. That's
And that
that is
don't you listen to Uncle Jimmy who's never owned a business about opening up your
yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Don't you listen to him. I don't care if he's smart in all these other areas. Unless he's been boots on the ground slaying it like you are day in and day out, take the mic from him.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
so you're gonna have to put up some binoculars, right? Just like a horse, right? They got those little those kind of shields to guard them from looking from left to right because they be going all sorts of crazy directions if they didn't have those. And so will you. You'll be scooping up $99 courses, listening to 10,000 webinars.
I'm sure anybody listening right now is like, oh, because I think that that is literally like if you was to take and get 100 entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs, I feel like we are like the leaders on that. The more that we take, the more that we do, the more that all these things. And I'm even again talking about myself early on. It was almost like I identified the success with that also. And it was like, okay, but that didn't make you any money though. That didn't make you didn't make any money. You spent some, so that's shopping. You know. So I mean, I'm not against education. Don't get me wrong. There are times, there's places if you want to learn a specific skill and you want to take a class for a specific skill, great. You know, I don't have a problem with any of that. But I think the problem is, and this is what I was using it for the very beginning, I felt like a fish out of water for a minute. And I thought by band-aiding it with these courses, these classes, these whatever, was going to somehow fix the things that needed fixed. And it didn't, because I had to fix it.
I'm just gonna say this, all right? Like, Maria knows I'm totally incorrect, right? You don't need another degree. Whoever is listening right now, you don't need another degree. I just want to tell you that right now. You don't need another certification, okay? You don't. And I know that's so hard to hear because you're so used to scoring on those degrees, getting them education, having them plaques on the wall. And if your business not feeling good, you could feel good taking that another course. So I get it. You're not feeling those dopamine hits,
Yeah.
and the money's not coming in. Well, I could transfer it and get another way. Because look, here's the thing. I'm just gonna be flat out. Expect to be butthurt while running your business repeatedly.
Yeah.
Expect cray cray as you're running your business. Like, Maria, oh my goodness. I was just telling my husband this. I had this marketer email me saying, "You don't want to work with me. What's your problem? I have great ads," and this garbled English. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, how did you get into my orbit? Like,
Yeah.
how did you get to my orbit? And my husband said to me, like, dogs pee, right? The same thing goes with solicitors. They will show up. Like, they will come.
They pop in from nowhere.
And we think that if we work hard enough, we get the degrees, we get all the certifications, we do all these, check off all these boxes, cross these T's, dot these I's, that somehow we can shield ourselves from disappointments and frustrations. And the fact of the matter is, it's how you work through them. That's how you build your maturity. But that's completely separate from them coming into your orbit. It's totally two separate things. So I think that for a lot of us, we just have to understand that. We have to just come to grips with things just don't work the way we want them to work.
Power flashed. So we're back now. All right. Anyways, how you work through, that's where you were at. And then we were frozen. All right. Go ahead. You don't know what you're saying now, do you?
Well, no, I guess what I got lots of things to say, but I will just say that for a lot of us, we base our approval based on the reaction of people, right? If we do this, X amount of people should appreciate this, right?
Yeah.
We're slaving hours, time, money, and we should get a return based on the way we perform, right? But that's just not how business works. And there's so many people that I admire, so many people I admire in business. I found out it was very interesting. I was reading about Stephen King the other day, and do you know his broke behind didn't even have a phone line when he finally, after sending manuscripts for years on end through a telegram message, hey, we're going to finally publish his manuscript about a girl who experienced a horrific event in a high school named Carrie.
Yeah, I didn't know that he didn't have a phone.
Didn't even have a phone. He was broke, raising two kids with his wife at the time, and he, to this day, even when he was a nobody, he wrote 10 pages a day. He still does that to this day. He keeps showing up. It doesn't matter whether or not there's one person or millions of people reading. And I think we really stop being princesses and princes about it and think that fact that, well, I have these degrees and I have the certification. People should pay attention to me. And the fact of the matter is, ain't nobody care about you, love, unless you're doing something that gives them value. And the only way they see value in you is if you show up even when nobody cares, consistently over time. And you may not get that opportunity within a year or two, but it guarantees to happen if you show up when everybody else balls out.
Yeah. And a lot of people do. I mean, you look at the failure rate of business, and I mean, some of them are due to other things, but a lot of them they quit because it's not easy. It's hard. And yes, a lot of people don't care. And yes, you're going to get butthurt. Is going back to that whole analogy of a baby. Not everybody thinks your baby's cute. You might think it's the most beautiful thing that you have ever seen, but not everybody thinks your baby's cute. This is how it is.
And I know people are listening, like, Maria, Denise, you can go to hell,
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, we see it all the time on social media where they say, just believe in yourself, just believe in yourself. But it's a little bit more than believe in yourself. It's about believe in what you do will help somebody, even if that somebody is you.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not really about you. Your business is a vehicle to deliver something. It's not about putting money in your pocket. I mean, obviously we need food, whatever. Yeah. But people can feel it all the time, whether or not you're in business to serve or to take. And it's hilarious. So I was in a women's group, some Yaya Sister Hub Club. I'm regretting and I'm rolling my eyes internally as I talk about it right now. And it was led by a woman that had some deep, deep insecurities. And I remember when I first saw her, I was very attracted because she seemed very confident, very put together. But over time, I was seeing that she was becoming, because she was leading with her, she never dealt with her insecurities. She started showing up less and less and less. And when she did talk, it was more inauthentic. And I pulled away from the group. A couple of months later, I got an email message from someone who was still in the group and saying, yeah, she's not really showing up as much. Yeah, the quality of the group has gone down. And now she's got a Patreon account and she doesn't really seem to have a lot going on. I'm like, well, I'm not shocked because she never dealt with her fears. And it was poisonous to her organization, and it hurt her bottom line, and it hurt the community that she said that she was going to help.
And she probably didn't even realize it, because I've met lots of people like that, and I think that they don't even know. They know something doesn't feel right, something doesn't fit, something's not working, but it's really hard to see when it's you. And, I think that a lot of us have our own kind of journeys like that. And I know that, when I first started in with my business, I got out of the corporate world, I didn't like having to wear that mask of perfection. But what did I do when I first started my business? Maria put on that mask of perfection. I did. It was almost like I didn't know how to do the business without it. I had to unlearn all of that. When you spend so much time learning something, it does take time to unlearn it. And then you do question, like, okay, well, should I even be doing this? You do question, what the right decision is. You question, you know, should I be who I really am, and is people going to be okay with that? And then you get to a certain point, and I don't know if it's because I've had my business for enough years now, or I'm in my 40s now, and we all know that that's kind of like the moment where we tend to get to that point in life anyway, where it's like, you know what, they don't like me, I don't care. It's kind of one of those things that you start to realize who you are, and more importantly, who you're not. And that is huge. And it doesn't, it's not a right and wrong thing for like people. It's a right and wrong thing for you. It doesn't feel right to me, I don't want to do it. If it doesn't feel authentic to me, I don't want to do it. And you know I think that all of us should be ready to accept our own authenticity, all the layers of it, because we are layers. I like that quote. I've mentioned this in the podcast so many times. People are probably like, oh my gosh, here we go with the quote again. But from Shrek, where he talks about that ogres are like onions, they have layers. And I'm always like, people are like ogres. They have, or I guess like onions, like ogres and onions, they have layers. We have layers. Like we have all these layers of who we are authentically as a person. And I think when I first started kind of stepping into my authenticity, I didn't realize, like, I thought that had to be like one thing, but we're not one thing, right? I have a very humorous side. I have a very deep, soulful side to myself. I tend to be more comfortable living in my humorous side most of the time, but I do have a very deep side. We're all layers. And I think to really be able to be authentic, we need to be okay with all the sides of us. And that it takes time.
40s, that's our Renaissance period.
I'm telling you, it's the Tawanda. You ever seen Fried Green Tomatoes?
Mm-mm.
Oh, girl, you need to watch that. That's a good movie. I'm telling you, it sounds like one of those like girls hugging each other all day, like I'm not holding hands, like no, it's not that. It is like Tawanda moment, where she had just had enough. She called it her Tawanda moment. It's based on a story. I'm not gonna ruin it for you, but the movie is called Fried Green Tomatoes, and she has enough. Just enough of everything, enough of the way that she is expected to be all the time and not be. And she hits this point and she calls it her Tawanda moment. And she's done. She's done dealing with it. She's ready to step into it. And that moment between stepping out of where people expected you to be with that mask, and once you break open that mask to step into who you were always meant to be, that in between little moment, that can be a little bit hectic because you're like, rah, or I was, you're breaking out, right? You're done with it all. And her Tawanda moment was a definite breakout. And, I think a lot of us hit that. I did. I hit it. I hit that point and I was like, you know what? I'm done being who I am expected to be. I'm ready to step in to be who I am. And, and then, you come out of that, like, and heal some, and then you're able to kind of like step into your authenticity from a healed place. And it looks a little bit different, but it's a journey, right? And it takes a lot of strength, inner strength, to be able to kind of get to that point. But I don't think it's anything that you could be like, on Friday, I'm going to step into my inner strength. I'm going to step into my authenticity. Like we've been talking about this whole time, you have to experience a lot of these things that gets you to that point.
So I don't know about you, but I burned through a lot of coaches.
Oh.
That's a podcast episode within itself.
Yeah.
But anyway, I remember I was talking with this one coach copywriter, and I was just figure out like how do you build a brand? How do you get people attention, right? And he just looked at me. He was like, "You got my attention." And I thought to myself, like, wait a minute. He's an audience of one. But isn't all audiences built on one,
Mm-hmm.
and then multiplies from that? Look, here's the thing. This should be an obvious, but I just have to say it anyway. Everybody's insecure. Everybody's fronting like they're more bigger and important than they really actually are. I love watching nature shows. And one of I love watching those BBC specials. And one of the birds that I love looking at is the bird of paradise. And South America, Brazilian rainforest, all those places. And anyway, what I love about the bird of paradise is that when it wants to either attract a mate or flee from danger, it puffs itself up 4 or 5 times bigger. It lands its plumes and it just struts around, and you see all these colorful things. But it's a little bitty thing, but it puffs itself up. And you and I look at it and go, like, you're just a little thing puffing itself up. He's like, no, but maybe people won't notice if I'm puffing myself up. And so if you know that about yourself puffing yourself up, why don't you realize that other people are puffing themselves up when they're feeling anxious or fearful or want attention? And so it's not about who can puff up themselves the biggest and the baddest, but who can be owning how they puff themselves up in a way that, hey, I'm good with who I am. Just because you're insecure doesn't mean that I need to take that baggage and take it onto me. Because a lot of people are like, we're holding baggages of fears and insecurities and all this stuff. And like, please take my insecurities. Please take my overwhelm. Please. And you're like, okay, I'll take it. And then you're wondering why you're feeling insecure and why you're not showing up because you've been around fearful people. Girl, I'm sorry. I'm getting on a rant.
No, I like it.
From the conversation.
That's good. No, it's not though. I mean, I titled this Harnessing Your Inner Strength. How can you harness your inner strength without these things? I think it is right on point.
And it just amazes me why people say like, well, all right, how do I grow awareness, right? And then and the real issue is you're not even growing in yourself. Like, so how in the world can you grow awareness in your business if you're not even showing up for you?
Yeah.
Forget about showing up for your business. And I see this all the time where you probably see it on social media too, where people are just writing all these feel good stuff. And that's not even you. That's not even you. If I actually picked up the phone and call you, are you saying that stuff? So why are you putting that mess on social media? You not even believing what you saying. You saying, you writing the things that you think people want to hear, but that's not even you. And then you're wondering why you're feeling uncomfortable about growing your business while you're so busy trying to wear that mask. And to your point earlier about, yeah, Maria, like we've all been trained in corporate to have this persona to make sure that everyone doesn't notice that the building's on fire when it really is. Or we can just put a barricade over around it. Yep. Maybe contain it.
It always reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. It does. It's like, don't look behind the curtain. Like, that's always reminded me of the corporate world. Like, it just has. And I think that a lot of us, much to your point, in our businesses, it's the same way. Like, there's things, we all have things we're great at in our business. I always say that we start a business for the 1 or 2 things that we do amazingly. And then something happens where we figure it out, we have to do a lot of other things. Some of them we do not do amazingly. Some of them we should never, ever touch. But yeah, we're supposed to do them. And I think that's where it starts to take a nosedive for some people because, you know, you're having to wear all these hats of things that you never wanted to do and quite frankly shouldn't do, you know, and it loses the appeal of why you started it to begin with. And I think that that's where a lot of people kind of get stuck, and then they end up just spraying and praying, as I say, you know, spraying things out there, spraying and praying. Something's got to work. Something's got to work because they need to hire to cover these things they shouldn't be doing, right? So they always think that more business, quote unquote, is going to fix that. And that, in my experience, especially working with people and even in my own world, more does not equal better, right? More does not equal better. Better equals better. And so, you know, if you're spraying, praying crap out there, you're going to be pulling in people that really are not for you. And, that is the worst thing. I ended up taking on clients early on in my business just because I was broke and I just needed money. I'm like, oh, you want to pay me to do that? Okay, I will be the perfect person for you. They were not a fit. And I knew they were not going to be a fit, personality wise, all the things wise. But I just was like, sure, you have money to pay me. Cool, we'll do this. And, that ends up biting you in the butt in the long run, because at the end of the day, on those types of jobs, you usually lose money on them because it was never a fit. It was never a fit to begin with. And, I think that kind of takes us into kind of a whole other subject that, not all money is good money. But, at the end of the day, the whole topic is the same. You have to figure out who you are, and more importantly, who you're not. You have to discover, what your strength you're bringing to the table is. And, it's usually a couple of things. It's not 27 things. It's usually a couple of things. And even if you have 27 businesses, if you dial it back, the things that you're good at and all of those is those same couple of things. And that's what you need to figure out. What are those things? With that being said, what are some things that I know we've been talking for a little bit, so I kind of want to circle this in a little bit, but what are some things you recommend for people listening? We've talked about a lot of things here, and they're probably like, wow, okay, well, I don't need to wear a mask. I need to do this. I need to do this. I don't need to do this. What would be something that you'd say, okay, from this conversation, here is what I want you to think about? What are those things?
Keep your first things first. I think when we start our business, we have lots of ideas, lots of inspirations, that we're getting lots of ideas from our friends, people in our business circles. And they're going to try to tell you to do 5,000 different things. And it always goes back to what's your gut telling you what's first right now. When we betray what our feeling instincts tell us, then we start going down the rabbit hole of stuff that we're grasping for straws. We're taking on clients that we don't need to be doing. We're going on lives 5 times a day, even though we really only need to doing a live a week. We're launching products that we don't even believe in. We're associating with people that are taking us away from what our focus in our business is, on and on, because we didn't put first things first. So I want everybody to do this. Get a piece of paper out, right? And I want you to write out all the stuff that you want to do, all the big ideas, all the grandiose plans you have. And I want you to look at your list, and I want you to look at it and think to yourself, what is my gut telling me is the most important thing or thing? 2 things, tops, really ideally 1. If you want to really push it, I know, because I've got some ADDH people in the room. 3 things, because I know you guys don't want to.
For any of you listening, I raise my hand, but they know. My listeners know. They already know, so it's fine.
For my special, I call them my unicorn friends. For my unicorn friends in the room, I want you to narrow it down. And I'm not trying to rain on your parade, but I want you to understand something very important, that discipline is freedom. Discipline is truly freedom. The same way that we've got rules that protect us from not having other people collide on us on the opposite side when we're driving. The same reason why we've got laws, so that people don't put toxic sludge in the water and get us sick. We've got rules, we've got constraints for a reason, so that we can stay focused on what matters most, so we don't lose our damn minds. Mm-hmm. And the reason a lot of you guys are feeling stressed and overwhelmed is because you're not putting harnesses on your passions.
Absolutely. No, I think that's mic drop stuff. I love that. Absolutely. And if you need to rewind this to kind of write these things down, I strongly encourage you to do that, because those are some golden nuggets of goodness. I do want you to let everybody know. So if people want to follow you, I know you mentioned you go by Denise Lee, and you can give your website, but where else can people follow you?
Yeah, thanks, Maria. So obviously you can find me on my website, deniseglee.com. You can also find me on X Twitter at Denise G. Lee. And there you'll be hearing me talk. Oh, actually, right. Exactly the way I'm talking right now. Because here's the deal. the way you see me showing up in video, audio is the way I show up everywhere, because I don't have the bandwidth to fragment myself into 5,000 separate pieces. And I think that's it. With my website, DeniseLee.com, you can read articles, inquire about coaching, all sorts of fun stuff, take one of my courses, but more importantly, just get an honest approach to not just growing your business, but living a life that's authentic. And Lord knows we need more authenticity now more than ever.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Well, this has been great. I really enjoyed talking. I always enjoy talking with you. And if you're listening to this on our podcast, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on the podcast, you can also find the links to all the things Denise Lee in the show notes. So that way you can, catch up with her and see what all that she has got going on. So until next time, thank you so much for being on today, Denise.
Thank you for having me, Maria.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through